Welcome to another edition of Believe in Giants. Bob Papa, two-time Super Bowl champion Carl Banks. We're believing that the Giants are in the divisional playoff round. They'll play Philadelphia on Saturday night in prime time. And Carl, man, what a performance, what an environment. And I really believe that Christmas Eve whiteout with that scene that was in US Bank Stadium definitely had the Giants prepared, because they didn't seem bothered at all by what happened in that stadium this Sunday with the noise or anything else.
Well, Bob, it is a tribute to just the way they prepare and the mindset of this team, because, yes, they felt everything that Minnesota had to offer in terms of crowd noise, distraction, all the above. And they prepared for a game. They did not look overwhelmed, even though they had to sit all week and answer questions about their experience, right? You guys aren't experienced. The Minnesota Vikings are experienced. And they just showed in and they showed up and showed that the moment was not too big for them.
No, it wasn't. And look, Minnesota goes down the field. They score right away. It was easy. You're down 7-0. And I think, the fact that the Giants answered right away and had their own stress-free drive. It's not like they had to make third downs and they had these high leverage, moments. It was easy, and Saquon runs it in from 28 yards out. They get too cute with a fancy play on third down. Giants get a stop. They score again. And then they go on a 20-play, 10-minute and 52-second drive. Now, it only ended in a field goal. But I think at that stretch of the game, the Giants felt like, hey, not only do we have a chance, we're better than these guys.
Yeah, like offensively, they really made the Vikings play down to their ranking. Simple as that. They really imposed whatever it was in terms of their scheme on the Vikings, and the Vikings really didn't have an answer for the passing game. Now, the other impressive part about this game, and Kirk Cousins was 80% on passing, right? But what Wink Martindale did in terms of adjustments, Dalvin Cook was not a factor in this game. And I credit Jalen Smith and Jarrett Davis and that entire defensive front for basically setting the wall and not allowing those cutbacks. I mean, he did not impact this game the way that I believe they thought he would. Because the success they had the last time they played, I'm sure they were anticipating having even more success running the football if they were more intentional about doing it. Well, they were intentional until the Giants showed that you can't run the ball on us the way you think you are. The other part of it, we talked about whether or not Justin Jefferson could be contained, right? Because you don't stop him. But you know what they did? They took him out of the game at some of the biggest moments. Mm-hmm. And that was the addition of Adoree Jackson. Now, he wasn't single one-on-one, but he certainly helps when you've got two guys, and one of those guys is Adoree Jackson, who's got to pay attention to the best wide receiver. And oh, by the way, Xavier McKinney could take your best guy, your second best option, and take him out of the game. So those adjustments really paid dividends, because what Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams did up front all game, but especially at crunch time, it showed me that this team was ready for prime time, but the moment wasn't too big. They stepped into the moment more so than the Vikings, because they took away Jefferson, they had pressure, and they made a tackle on a fourth down, which was beautiful.
They did so many little things in this game, whether it was Adoree Jackson making a play or Darnay Holmes reading and identifying a screen coming up, and then you had the throwback to Cousins, and they weren't out of position. Yeah, where at times, Hawkinson, when he had those back-to-back 27-yarders, at times did they have some breakdowns? Yeah, but those guys are really good. Breida getting skinny to get a first down. Daniel Jones under pressure, not rushing the ball and flipping it beautifully to Barkley so Saquon can get upfield and get a first down. Like, there's so many little things that this team is doing in these games that you sit there and you say to yourself, they really are, you take a look at them individually, but then when you take the sum of the parts, they're playing what this sport is all about. This is the ultimate team sport. This is the ultimate. Baseball is a individual sport wrapped up in a team concept. Basketball is a team sport that can be controlled by one or two players on the court. Hockey is very important and dependent upon a hot goaltender in the playoff time. Football, you cannot function unless all 11 operate in sync and succeed on each play, or else it's a blown up play. And I'm just floored by the way these guys are coming together and building this confidence that they have.
Well, there are two things that we have to just really speak to, Bob. And one is, we heard a narrative coming into this game, or coming into the last Philadelphia game, is why Brian Daboll should not rest his players because of the rhythm, keep the momentum, all of that. Well, guess what, folks? He rested his players. They came out sharp. They came out rested. They came out ready. So what works for one coach does not necessarily mean that every coach in the league has to do it that way, or every coach in the history of coaching that faces a similar position has to do it that way. Like, each coach is their own man. They have a feel for their their personnel. So you have to let these coaches, when they have a feel for it, and I think this head coach and his staff have a really good feel for the players on this roster, and they knew what was needed to get the best out of them.
Yeah, and I mean, if I hear one more time the comparison to 07, first of all, in 07, the Giants wound up losing Sean O'Hara and Corey Webster. Those guys didn't play in the playoff game against the Tampa Bay Bucks, but the Giants won, so people don't remember that. The other thing is, they were defending history. The Patriots were trying to go undefeated. They weren't defending history in the last regular season game. I mean, so Philadelphia is going to get the number 1 seed, or they're not. Big deal. No one's going to remember 4 years from now. And you saw it. You saw Barkley look fresh. You saw guys looking fresh and quicker, and that week off helped. I mean, let me ask you this, Carl. Would you have believed that the Giants could win a playoff game on the road against anybody with Saquon Barkley getting as few carries as he wound up getting in the game?
9?
Which speaks to what this team is all about.
Yeah. I tell you what, like,
Daniel Jones slander.
Go. I think going into this game, the day of the game, Sal Palantonio says, how many carries you think Barkley gets? I said minimum 20. He's like, nah, it's going to be upwards of 30. They need that many for them to win the game. Well, guess what? They got pretty good coaches, because Saquon Barkley had 9 touches as a running back, and every one was pretty important. But he had a lot more touches in terms of catching the football. But this is like, we have to stop looking at football through the eyes of how we saw it before, or looking at Giants football through the lens of how we've seen it before. These coaches, they see the game different. They prepare their team based on what's going to work for their personnel and how this game is played here in this new era of football. Like, we've been so conditioned to think of Giants football in more traditional ways and not being open to seeing how the other side of life in 2020s is playing football. And this is, get used to it, folks, because, these guys are coming up with great game plans. They know how to attack defenses, and defensively, they know how to play this game. And, you're not going to see shut down defenses when you don't have the personnel, but you'll see their ability to shut someone down if it comes down to a single play. And that's what they did. They said, Wink said, on this given play, it's a must have it. Well, you're not getting Justin Jefferson. So you're going to have to take somebody else. And you're going to have to make that decision in a hurry because my guys are coming. I got your best guy covered. So make a decision. It was Hockenson 5 yards shy of the first down.
And think about this, right? They only got a field goal out of it, but the Giants went on a 20-play drive.
It was like double-digit minutes, right?
10 minutes and 52 seconds, almost 11 minutes. So that's a great defense against an explosive offense. But you were on a defense in Tampa in Super Bowl 25 that had one of those drives. But that was a lot of runs. That was OJ pounding it. Ingram made a great play on that drive to keep it going, but it was like a pound it. Just think about the fact that it's not like they were pounding it with Barkley for 3 and 3 and 4 and 3. They're throwing it, they're short passing, and they're running quarterback sweeps. I mean, it was, you're 100% right. It's football in the 2020s that you could have a 20-play, 10-minute and 52-second drive and not be feeding one guy the ball the entire drive.
That whole drive, I think Barkley touched the ball close to the red zone. He didn't touch it down at the other end of the field as a runner. So that just tells you that this is a new not for everybody else in the NFL, but for Giants fans, you're entering into what you've been clamoring for. An offensive play caller with imagination. And they use their personnel in very advantageous situations. And, I just think it's refreshing. I like the fact that this staff and this core of players are all on the same page. The playoffs, I'm in the hotel and sitting in the hotel restaurant / bar, and I'm next to Saquon Barkley's family. And I think Cam Brown came over. I think his mother was there. And they didn't seem like they were overwhelmed. They just the way they prepared tells me that there's a calm that comes over these guys because they prepared during the week, and there's just like no uncertainty to where they're just so anxious. Like, Saquon, he and I were just talking about the other game that was on TV. And was I surprised at what Seattle was doing at the time that they were coming back? And we just talked about it. And then I had, conversation with him and some of his friends, his father. But it just tells you what good coaching can do, right? Their players, this Giant team prepares well, so they're not overwhelmed during the course of a game. From the minute of pregame warmups to the moment he walked into the huddle, Daniel Jones did not seem like a deer in headlights. I mean, he played that game as if it was just, hey, let me just do my job and we'll win. And that's what you want.
Yeah, he did not, all we heard about, experience, lack of playoff experience. But did Daniel Jones at any point in that game look like he was playing in his first playoff game? He looked like a guy that had been there numerous times before. And he played his college ball at Duke. So it's not like he played in the SEC or, the Big Ten or the Pac-12, and he's played in Rose Bowls and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
Did he even look remotely at any point in that game ever flustered?
No, and I think, for the fans, and we have a lot of fun, at least I do, with a lot of the Daniel Jones slander guys, but it's getting quiet on that front. Like everybody who was, how about the guys who said it's counterproductive for the Giants to be in the playoffs because it's only going to set them back because it creates unrealistic expectations because they're not going to win a playoff game and they don't have the personnel anyway. Well, guess what? They're on to the next round. And I think everyone will agree that a playoff win is really good for what you're trying to build in your culture. Point blank.
Absolutely. That was a silly narrative. And now you have a chance to win another one. So, okay, yeah. The Eagles have beaten the Giants. By my recollection and my adding, if you go back to that 2008 playoff loss at Giant Stadium, I think they've beaten the Giants 23 out of the last 29 meetings. I mean, it's ridiculous. The Giants haven't won in Philly since 2013. They found unbelievable ways to lose to Philadelphia, whether it was Deshaun Jackson, Evan Ingram dropping a ball. There's a million scenarios. But for the players on this team right now in 2022,
they weren't part of any of those.
They don't care.
They weren't part of that. They didn't play on those teams.
That doesn't mean anything. All they know is this. Philadelphia kicked our ass at MetLife Stadium earlier this year. We went back down there and played them with all of our reserves and our quarterback, who was a practice squad player, who was elevated for the game against their ones. And we hung with them. And we got confidence right now. And if we do what we need to do and what coach tells us to do, we're going to have a chance to win this game, right? We have a chance to then get to the NFC Championship game if we take care of business and do what we have to do. That's all they're thinking. They don't know any of these numbers.
Right.
They don't know
and
any
it
of this
shouldn't
stuff.
matter to any of them. None of them, a lot of them wasn't even in college when this thing first started. So they don't care. What they care about is what they can affect today, not somebody else's streak that belongs under the Giants banner, right? It's what are we going to do today? And, the other thing that we have to continue to just salute is the play of the wide receivers, right? Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton, all of these guys. And I know we're in the middle of broadcast and, you kind of went on the Slayton drop, which really could have ended the game, right?
Yeah.
And it was a missed opportunity. And I said to you on air, yeah, they could have, but now the defense gets a chance to do their job because they're taking the field with a lead to protect. So the defense did their job, and as a byproduct of that, they bailed Slayton out. And that's what team is about. Like you talk about, the sum of its parts. That's what this NFC East New York Giants football team is, a sum of its parts. So they pick each other up. And, they're not in that position without some of Slayton's key catches.
Of course.
Let's just look at it that way. It's not like that was the only play they threw to him. He dropped it. And we get it. Yeah, he gets it too. That's why he was so bummed out that he was, that could have been the one that sealed the game. And nobody felt worse. But thank God the defense took the field with a lead and they shut it down. And as a byproduct, they helped their brother out. Help a brother out.
It's funny because we both have a soft spot for Darius Slayton in this fact that we've always thought he's a good player. I know you've studied him a lot this year. His route running is a lot better than he gets credit for. And he's been instrumental in this team's success this season once he started to get an opportunity. But it is weird. Like, it seems like there's this ceiling, though, with him that he has all these good games. And how many times this year has he gotten to like 84 yards receiving, 88 yards receiving like the other day? 91 yards receiving, and he hasn't had a 100-yard receiving game since 2020 against Dallas. And I'm like, oh man, he's getting it this time. He's getting it this time.
And it always feels like he's going to get there too.
And then he has the drop. He'll have
Yeah.
if he catches that ball and runs with it, he's over 100. In Washington with a minute 20, or at home against Washington with a minute 25 to go when he ran wide open and he dropped it. Those will all put him over 100. It's like give the guy a break, man. Come on. Because I want to see him. I want to see him do well.
He'll get that. I mean, you know, for Darius Slayton, and yeah, it's a soft spot. It's not a blind spot. But I tell you what I have most for Darius Slayton is respect. Respect for the way he prepares, for his mental toughness. I mean, folks, you would have to be around this kid and just observe him from afar. You don't have to be standing next to him. If you just watch him and his approach to this game and the way he prepares, the way he verbally prepares while he's at practice, not on the field, going through formations, what he should be, what the other guys should be doing, what the defense is doing. If you just watch him, you would have a great deal of respect. And he's not a bum. That's why, you know, when he goes out there and he plays, we expect a lot from him, but he does himself. So yeah, I got a soft spot for him, but most importantly, I got a great deal of respect because he had to go through a lot to win over the confidence of this personnel staff, this coaching staff, and even his teammates to a degree. And he was up for the task. And then I think if you ask anybody, he's exceeded expectations. Anybody that was new to Darius Slayton, that hadn't been around him, he's exceeded expectations because they thought they were going to have to cut him. We're probably trying to move him, right? He took a pay cut, and that hopefully works itself out because he'll be rewarded for how well he's played. But just all the things that could have broken a football player mentally, it didn't break him. It just made him stronger. It strengthened his resolve. So, and I'm so glad that he's contributing to what they have going on right now.
Yeah, and just kind of like in wrapping it up too, like when we were sitting with Dable on Monday, you know, and it's amazing how well coached they are because like the play that Flott made on the third down, you know, everybody's ready. Everybody knows their assignment. And like he even told us, he's like, you know, it's not like the guy was playing the whole game. He had like limited snaps. But then in a big, high, important moment in the game, the guy's in there and it was something that they had seen before. And he played the technique perfectly and he gets the pass breakup. And that kind of really sums up what this team is all about. Like,
well, think about this, Bob. That was the same play that kept their drive alive in their last game.
Right.
It was the exact same route to Jefferson, who was better than the guy covering him because they had it covered, they had it diagnosed, but he was just better. This game, he was not.
Right. I mean, they just didn't, you know, Osborne has made a lot of big plays. He made a lot of plays in the game, and Flott was like right there. He was on top of him, and he took care of business. The locker room, how cool. The locker room was cool. You know, everybody getting the burritos, getting on the bus, you know, getting to the, you know, the chatter, you know, people think that like these flights and stuff are like crazy. Everybody's exhausted. These guys have burned a lot of energy. But there was that like happiness, you know, everybody's kind of fist pumping and, you know, it's on to Philadelphia. Feeling. Yeah. That's winning why when people say, oh, they shouldn't have made the playoffs, they're not going to win a championship. This stuff. And it's not just what happens in the game. It's the experience. It's the team traveling on the road, going to the hotel. It's the meetings, it's the meals, it's the camaraderie, and then the positive reinforcement of the win. And I'm walking out with a bunch of players because in Minnesota, you have to walk across the field to get to where the buses are parked in the other tunnel. And, you know, players are dragging their bags and they're walking across the field. And, you know, on Christmas Eve, there were a lot of Vikings fans in those lower suites yapping. They were quiet this time. But these guys talking about moments in the game and laughing and, grabbing the burritos and grabbing something to drink. And I'm standing next to Thibodeau, and he's got this big smile on his face as he's trying to choose whether he's going to have the chicken or the beef or whatever. And guys are just yucking it up. Those are things that people don't see when they say, wow, no, they should, but they would have been better off not to. For your core
And here's
guys,
the
man,
other part.
moving forward, this is valuable.
Yeah, because you know why, Bob? They weren't just happy to be there.
Nope.
And you could tell by their reaction after the game. It wasn't happy they won it. They weren't happy to be there. They were like, they happy they won, but they're on to the next game. They're like, they feel like they can win. And it's not like they got in there and say, well, this is going to be a great experience for our program and we could build on it. Nope, they're in it to win it. And in doing so, it's great. It's great for the program. It's great for what they're building because they're all a young team. And they have a lot that they can build on. And it's a great experience for them to keep advancing in the playoffs.
No doubt about it. Bet Online remains your number one source for all your sports betting this season. Everything from NFL playoffs, pro, college football, UFC, MMA, and more. You'll always find the latest odds, trends. Bet Online, live betting options, free contests, live scores for almost any sport or game. Bet Online, the fastest, easiest way to bet on your favorite sports leagues. Head to the website, mobile device to join, and you'll receive a 50% welcome bonus in your first deposit. Make sure you use the promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, to receive your reward. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. And, Carl, I was thinking about this when you said about the playoffs and being in the playoffs. And, some said, well, they're not going to win a championship. What's the point? It'll hurt the draft position or whatever. And it reminds me of their attitude reminds me of a book written by the esteemed longtime columnist from the Newark Star-Ledger, who wrote a book titled No Medals for Trying, which was the Parcells line, right? That's the Parcells line. You're in it to win. You're not going there for participation medals. And that's what this team is doing. That's that's their mindset right now. They're not, we're just happy to, we're ahead of schedule. Hey, we got here and let's give it our old college try. But if we don't, we're going to be back. No, they're like, dude, we're in this thing. Minnesota, here we come. And their attitude is going to be like Philadelphia. Guess what? You know what? Your quarterback is a 5-tool threat in Jalen Hurts, and we know he is one of the forerunners for the MVP award. But guess what? We got a dude, number 8, who can break the game open with his legs and his arm and his throwing of the football. So why don't you deal with that? Worry about that.
Yeah, it's going to be fun, man. This has been such a fun period. Yes, the Giants are ahead of schedule, but fans embrace this. This team is worth rooting for, and you've come out every single week in MetLife Stadium to show that. But this team, they're for real, and they're serious about it. They're not intimidated, but they're not the team that's going to walk around with their chest poked out saying, bring it on. But you're going to get their best, and they're going to be prepared. And they're going to quietly go about showing you that you're going to have to respect them, starting with their quarterback.
We'll be back later in the week for a preview of the Eagles game. So how do we like to end this thing?
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Daniel Jones is your QB.
Man, he's making a lot of cash. It's like the poor man's version of Aaron Judge.
Hey, let's go.
Coming up a free agency at the right time.
Yeah.
But you win a playoff game. You know it. Tell a friend to tell a friend. For Carl Banks, I'm Bob Papa. We'll talk to you later in the week for another edition of Believe in Giants.